half hour. This is your half hour call. Half hour call. Hello, 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 and welcome to Half Hour Call, the podcast where we talk about all things live theater, TV, film, basically anything entertainment in general. I'm your host, Rich Kless. Today's guest is a percussive powerhouse whose rhythm has been echoing across stages, streets, and studios for decades. From iconic venues like Jones Beach Theater and CBGB's, he's built a legacy behind the kit that blends passion, precision, and pure rock energy. Starting his journey at 8, he grew up in a music-infused home and never looked back. He studied under legendary instructors like Mark Edwards, Guy Gelso, and Jimmy Perrone, and went on to carve out a reputation of one of Long Island's most iconic, dynamic, and versatile drummers. He spent 25 years as the rhythmic backbone, the original rock band Fear of Fred, earning chart placements, national airplay, spots on MTV and CBS. He's opened for the likes of Styx, Billy Squires, Huey Lewis and the News, and the Alarm, while finding time to rock in parades with this Street Band Preservation Society for 20 years. Whether he's laying down grooves for R&B with Groovology or throwing down top 40 hits with Alternate Fred, engineering live shows for New York Dinner Theater, or passing on his passion as a teacher, he brings heart, humor, and serious chops to everything he does. He's even caught the attention of mega producer Sam Hollander. Please welcome to the mic, Matt McCluskey. Matt, welcome.
Richard, great to see you. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Okay, everybody gets on the show gets the same first question. So, what made you want to be an entertainer? Go back to the beginning.
Wow. Okay. So this is I don't want to date myself here, but mid to late 70s. My next door neighbor was a prominent jazz drummer. His name was Herb Chaney.
Okay.
And he had two sons. One of them ended up being my best friend. They played the drums. Then one of my older brothers studied with Herb and really took to the drums and actually became a big inspiration for me. Then I have another older brother who played guitar. So there was a lot of music going on. I think that's like 5 drummers between 2 houses. So lots of music, lots of music on the turntable, lots of music on the radio, and there were always jam sessions going on. And over time, I was like, "Oh, this looks like fun. This is a lot better than playing baseball or basketball." And so then I ended up, just kind of starting my own little band when I was 14, and didn't know how to read music. Didn't really, I took some lessons from my brother, and just kind of grew from there. And then high school was a whole nother, and that's how we crossed paths. That was a whole nother.
Are you mostly self-taught or just through picking up stuff with your brothers?
Originally, I was self-taught, just listening to records, Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Kiss, anything that was playing at the time. And then I knew I had to, learn how to read music and get better. I wanted to play in the high school concert band. That was one of my goals. And I just knew I had to, learn and get better. So I studied at the Long Island Drum Center for about 2 years. And that really just propelled me. That just put me in another level. And it was addicting. I just kept practicing and practicing. And, after school, my friends, "Oh, let's go out. Let's do this. Let's do this." So it kept me out of trouble, which was good because, I have to practice. I have a drum lesson, but I got to see my progression happen so much faster,
Right. So Fear of Fred sounds like it's been a wild ride, 25 years, chart success.
Yes.
All that
Yes.
Give me some 1 or 2 moments from that era that you just still gives you goosebumps,
So, well, it would have to be, well, it was a lot actually, but I would say, hearing your music on the radio for the first time. And ironically, we were doing an interview for, I think, CW Post, and we were driving home from the interview. It was about 11:30 at night. And one of the local radio stations was playing our song, and we just did a double take, myself and the guitar player, and just hearing your music through the radio is just something, it's hard to explain that feeling, and then some of the other things, I think, just being on the stages with a lot of people that we admired, a lot of the musicians that we got to meet over the years, and obviously seeing our music, the My Jam commercial, people calling us up saying, "Hey, I saw your band's music on," we weren't in the commercial per se, but the video mentioned our band, and, people knew our music. So it aired on Nickelodeon during SpongeBob. So people would call us up, "Oh, I heard your band this morning. Oh, that was terrific," So just things like that, just kind of validating all the work you put in. You see it on a different platform. It's nice.
Who were some of your or the band's influences during that period? Who were you guys like?
Ooh. Well, I think each one of us has a lot, which is, I think that's what makes a band the best. We don't all listen to the same type of music.
Mhm.
I grew up, like I said, listening to all the classic rock bands from the 60s and 70s. So I grew up on the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, The Who, the Rolling Stones. But then I also had a big jazz background. Studying drums back in the late 70s and early 80s, you had to learn jazz. And I liked it too. I grew up listening to Buddy Rich and Max Roach, all the big band, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker. I loved it. Was such a big contrast to rock music. And then eventually, getting into like funk music and soul and just all different styles. So that's what I think I brought to the table. And they were more into like, say, Bruce Springsteen and even like some Pink Floyd. And then I think our sound kind of evolved over time. We had a modern rock sound that really kind of fit. We really kind of came our success came at the late part of the 90s, so a lot of that the grunge music and alternative rock was kind of changing a little bit.
Right.
And then I think into the early 2000s there was more of a pop, almost punk kind of sound, and I think we kind of honed in on that, more like the Foo Fighters, Blink 182, Green Day,
Right.
Weezer. People used to compare us to that, but it worked, you
Yeah.
know.
So just because this for me, I geek out on this. Like, what's it like playing at CBGB's? I mean, I heard that I was like, dude, really?
It's a little it's nostalgic because of all
That's
the
what I'm
bands that
talking
have
about.
played there.
Yeah.
But everyone will tell you it's a hole in the wall.
Oh, it
But it's
absolutely.
okay.
I
And
is
sticky floors and a funky bathroom. The sound system was great actually.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just more of that's you're inside and go, wow, I can't believe we're here. All these famous bands have played here. This is terrific. And wow, that's a cigarette burn on the ground from probably Joey Ramone or something like that. So yeah, that was always nice. But it is funny. It has this reputation of being a complete grungy place, no pun intended.
There's a little party that goes, this is it, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
When you
Yeah, so it's a little, it's a little, what's the word, you're a little like, oh, okay, I thought this was going to be a little, maybe a little bit of a letdown, because it's like, ooh, I thought this was going to be this grand, majestic place, and it's just, okay, it's just a club, but a lot of history there, a lot of history.
absolutely, absolutely is. Um, you balance your music career with teaching and sound engineering, and how do you keep firing and burning creatively through all that? How do you keep that going?
Wow, that's a great question. I think it's just, because it started at such an early age. I've tried to like put it on pause. I do have another career I actually went to school for, and music has always been there. It's always, I just could never put it off for too long, and I think just the enjoyment of it, and fortunate just to play with good people and be around so many talented people, whether I was in a band. And when I was doing sound engineering, I was kind of in the backseat role, but
Mhm.
I was also in a similar drummer role where you're kind of controlling things. People call you like the pilot. You're kind of steering the plane, and so I was kind of setting up all the gear and checking everything, and kind of running the shows.
Mhm.
But also being an active participant. And it's like, it's just like this feeling you get. It's almost like an addiction of sorts. It's a good addiction, and it's very cathartic, and it's kind of helped me grow in different areas. So it's kind of hard just to put it off.
Right.
So just in hearing different types of music, I think that's the thing. Just if I listened to one style of music, I think I would have got bored. Just so I'm always trying to listen to different things and discover new things.
How did you connect with the other members of Fear of Fred? Like, what was the how did that come about?
How much time we have, Rich? It's a long story, but all right.
Yeah,
So I'll try to
that's
give you the
fine.
short version. So I actually was in a band prior to that, and we had secured a recording contract, independent recording contract. And the short version of that is it fell apart. It got very dramatic, and I was ready to quit my job at the time and go on tour because the people that are managing us saying, oh, we're going to try and go get you guys booked with Black 47, and there was a band at the time called Space Hog. So we were all excited.
Mhm.
We had studio time booked at a famous studio that David Bowie had recorded. So we were all in, and then it just started getting really messy and bad. So we got out of the contract, and subsequently the band fell apart. And I said, okay, I can't stop. This is really bad. And I was kind of complaining about it at my job at the time. And one of my coworkers said, hey, my brother-in-law's looking for a drummer. They have a band called Fear of Fred. And I said, oh, that's a horrible name. I don't think I could deal with that. Okay, okay. So I got the demo tape. It was very professional looking. That
Mhm.
was the first thing that caught my eye. I said, "Okay, they're not messing around. They're serious." And I listened to it. It was very well produced, very well put together. I wasn't crazy about the music. It's okay. They know this. I wasn't enamored with it at the beginning. And my girlfriend at the time, who was now my wife, she said, "Oh, I really like this." So okay, okay, I'll go on the audition. Want to impress her, and we just hit it off. I learned all the songs. I passed the audition. We had a gig, I think, booked about 2 weeks after the audition, and we just kept going on. And I think I came in kind of guns blazing. At that time, we still wanted to try to get some kind of recording contract. That was really the goal at the time, and that eventually changed into getting other, trying to get our stuff licensed and out into different mediums, which is how we got onto MTV and CBS. And so we just kind of luckily all hit it off. It was a good chemistry, and I think everybody was at a very professional level, and we all had other jobs that kind of kept us grounded and stable, but we were pretty active. So that's the short version. But yeah, and it just kind of kept snowballing and snowballing. In fact, funny story really quick. In the beginning, I wasn't really sure if they were really committed as much as I was. And I
Mhm.
said, "Oh man, I hate that name, Fear of Fred. It's not marketable. It just sounds too goofy." And the next day, sort of like that, my singer calls me up. He goes, "Hey, it's okay. I want to know if we could use your name in the newspaper and your picture. They're going to Newsday's doing a story on bands with like peculiar names." I said, "Okay, sure." So sure enough, the next day, page 20 on Newsday, there we are with a bunch of other bands with kooky names, big story on us, and everybody's going, "Oh, I saw you in the paper. I saw you in the paper." And boom, that was great marketing. It was like free press and just boom, kind of, got everybody got our name out there. And then it became like a funny thing. Oh yeah, I heard of that name. I heard of that name. Whether they did or not, it just sounded familiar.
It does. I even said that to my wife the other day. I was like, this man from somewhere, but absolutely. We talked about CBGBs a little bit. What are some of your favorite venues?
So we used to let's see. Oh my. Uh Well, in the city, we did almost like I would say a residency for many years at a place down on Bleecker Street called Kenny's Castaways, and it was great. We always met a lot of celebrities. It seemed to be like a Saturday Night Live cast hangout,
Right.
so met a lot of people there. We just had great times there. But we had played at the Vanderbilt. That was a place, a big stage in I believe I guess that's Bethpage. Obviously the Jones Beach stuff we did through Clear Channel Entertainment. We had played at the Bolton Center in Bayshore that we did like a 10th anniversary show and sold that out. That was pretty
Mhm.
awesome. And let's see where else. 80. I said 89 North. I'm trying to the downtown and Farmingdale and some of these I forget. Rich, the kind of I have them written down, but yeah. And sometimes it was just some of the smaller gigs. It was just the energy and the vibe you got and how we sounded. It could be 5 people and I had a great time. It could be 100 people or 1,000 people, and you're like, okay, that gig was okay.
Well, conversely, can you think of like the worst venue you went into and you were like, oh my God, this show ended, not happening.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I don't know. I don't think so. I can't really think of anything that was really bad. There was just a couple of places had some interesting odors to them.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. So maybe starting out some of the because we would take any gig possible. We would just start playing anywhere. We play a big stage one week, a smaller stage the next week. Just to kind of get out there. But yeah, I do remember one place, and it was in Massapequa, and it just smelled like stale beer. And I think we cut the set short because we were like, oh my gosh, and we were right next to the bathroom. It was a horrible setup, but believe it or not, it was a showcase. Now that I remember it, and I go, no one's coming down here. This place is awful.
I can tell you that those things follow you because I've worked with some bands before and on stage and stuff, but I've always said you can tell a band that's been around by the smell of their instruments.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, yeah,
There's definitely a quality to it. Sometimes you can definitely tell, oh, these
yeah.
guys have been in some places, you know. Um, Let me ask you, so who you personally, we talked about just the band in general, but again, I know you influenced mainly by jazz, but is there any more specific person or group that you just tried to emulate your entire career at all? Um,
Well, I'll give you my top five drummers because it's funny when I was teaching, I would show students these things and I'd say, "Oh, I ripped this off of from this drummer, and this is a lick from this drummer." So everybody always says, there's the big rock drummers that from our our time period there were Neil Peart from Rush, John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. Those are the two that I studied the most, I learned the most from. Stuart Copeland from the Police,
Mhm.
huge influence. Alex Van Halen, believe it or not, his brother kind of overshadows him, but phenomenal drummer. And I would
Amazing
always
drummer.
pick up all these little things because I listened to that music so much. And then Phil Collins, before he became Phil Collins, the singer,
So,
phenomenal drummer and left-handed too. I'm left-handed, so it made me feel like I wasn't such a misfit. And then a lot of other like jazz fusion guys like Steve Smith, who actually started his career with Journey and kind of went into a jazz fusion kind of direction. Of course, all the jazz guys that I might have met. Well, I don't know if I mentioned them, but of course, Buddy Rich, Max Roach, Art Blakey, Tony Williams. There's just so many. You pick out little bits and pieces. But those are the main rock guys. I mean, I have a whole list, and then obviously later on, I got into some more of the modern guys like Danny Carey from Tool, Jimmy Chamberlain from Smashing Pumpkins, who actually has a huge jazz background. Um, Carter Beauford from Dave Matthews, Larry Mullen Jr. from U2. Was just listening to him earlier today. Just phenomenal. And you pick up little things. You go, oh, that's great. Steve Gadd. Oh boy, there's so many.
this is what I love about this because, again, I can always tell the people who are really good at what they do because they can rattle off the history or of their thing. Like there's so many times I work with a lot of young students where I am at a college and stuff, and sometimes I'm like, oh, you're talking about Buddy Rich, and they're like, I don't know who that is. And you're like, come on,
Oh no.
everybody knows who Buddy Rich is. Like, or even more, recent, it's Phil Collins, and I get, and I'm just like, they're just not working that hard for it.
Yeah.
Um, well, now you're playing now with Groovology and an alternate Fred. How has your performing evolved from your early rock band days?
It's gotten better, Rich. It's actually gotten better. I'm not regressing.
In what
So,
way?
but here's the thing. I record if I can, every performance.
Mhm.
And I do it to basically self-criticize myself and then also evaluate the band and the sound. And I still work on it. So I'll listen to certain songs and say, okay, how was my timing? Number one, did I do what I wanted to do in that song? Did I elevate it? Did I lay back enough? Did I not do enough? How did that drum fill work out in that particular song if I wanted to do something different? So I think that's very important to always kind of listen to yourself and be humble. And there's times where I thought I had a bad performance. Well, maybe not bad, but not stellar. And I'd go back, okay, that wasn't that bad. But in the moment you go, oh, didn't sound that great. And then also evaluating the sound of your equipment. I listen back, oh wow, I didn't think that sounded that great, but it sounds pretty good on the tape. You know, um, and yeah, I think just kind of practicing still. I still practice as much as I can and always exploring new music and new patterns. So if there's something, uh, there's certain songs, iconic songs that everybody tries to learn. I go, well, I really never learned or perfected, the groove to Rosanna by Toto.
Right.
Famous drum groove, which was based off John Bonham's "Fool in the Rain" and Bernard Purdy from Home at Last
Mhm.
by Steely Dan. And just taking that groove, it's called a shuffle, right? It's
Right.
kind of hard, but if you practice, you go, okay, I got it, I got it, I got it. And you just kind of be, okay, now I can apply this to different songs. And believe it or not, in Grooveology, the band I'm playing with now, in addition to Alternate Fred, we do some Stevie Wonder. And a lot of people don't realize, like, Stevie Wonder played the drum track on Superstition. And
Absolutely.
it's a tricky beat. It's not as easy. You can play it simple, but I feel like it's Stevie. I gotta play it as close, and it's a phenomenal drum beat, you
Yeah.
know. But I really had to sit down and break it down and kind of chart it out. Go, okay, this is what he's doing. Okay, let me just play this 100 times.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that's a great influence right there because I know my son has mentioned many times he just breaking down Superstition on the bass for him has been like just
Oh
something
yeah.
spend hours and hours doing. and,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Um, he's doing some engineering as well as playing. How has being an engineer affect your playing and vice versa? Um,
Hmm. These are some tough questions. So when I was doing sound engineering, it was really understanding the mixing board and how it worked with the singers. And I worked with some phenomenal singers, and just being able to create the balance, and then understanding how certain songs were more dynamic than others and required maybe more volume or less volume, and obviously all your highs, your mid, your lows, and just trying to learn how to tweak that. And I kind of learned by scratch in the beginning. I didn't really take any classes, or I just knew enough, and I did my own research over the years. And then the singers would come up to me and say, wow, that was a great mix. How did you do that? I don't know. I care, I want it to sound as good as possible. My job is to make you sound good.
mm,
So same way, like playing drums, first of all, you could do lots of, as you call them, like licks and drum fills. But, I always say my job is number one, keep the time, right? Keep the beat moving. And I say like certain styles of music, if I'm playing bad, then people are going to dance all kind of kooky, right? If people are outside dancing and moving around, then I did my job. But it's really about to make the song, right? That's actually a Ringo Starr kind of philosophy. And actually Liberty DeVito from Billy Joel's band kind of took that same philosophy. Play for the song first. Then if you have space, you could throw in some cool drum fills and things like that. So it's just kind of understanding what each song brings to the table.
yeah, I mean, I've said this to many people many times. Being in technical theater, for example, for years I've been, people go, "Oh, you can come see my show and come see my concert." I am incredibly, incredibly hard to entertain because I stop paying attention to the actual performance and I start going, that light's not focused right. That mix has got way too much reverb.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you. I do that too.
And I just get pulled away. But at the same time, I've done a decent amount of performing as well. And I think it's made me a better performer to be on that
Mm,
end of things because of like I know what the person in that booth's going through right now.
mm.
You know, I know how to find light. I know how to, do all those things.
Right,
And
right.
I think it can make you better in both respects. I tell many students that I have all the time that are, if they're just studying technical stuff, I was like, "Well, you need to go be in a show." And they're like, "What? I don't," and I'm like, one time,
Yeah,
just so you can know what it's like on that end.
yeah.
And
Good advice.
I think that's important to know that you get better at both things when you do that.
Absolutely.
You have that. Um, Talk to me about, I mentioned the attention from Sam Hollander. What was that all about?
Oh, okay. I have to be careful how I say it. I don't want to still kind of keep it on the down low a little bit. So many years ago,
Not bad. It's a good.
Sam came, I think he let's see here, let me remember the connection here. So my singer had a coworker who was living next door to him in New York City and said, "Hey, you should hear my friend's band." And he somehow kind of became enamored with us, or maybe enamored is a strong word, but interested
Okay.
in us, and we got together. And he went out to LA eventually, and really just his career took off. And I think I kind of rattled off some of his accolades. It's amazing. If you get a chance, check out his book. It's called 21 Hit Wonder,
Hmm.
and it really is a story of, I mean, anybody in entertainment should read it because he is the epitome of perseverance.
Yeah.
And he really kind of just kept going and going after rejection, just kept going. And here we are talking about him. So we wrote some songs with him. Nothing has surfaced yet. That's all I could probably say right now. We're still kind of
Yep.
working, but he is such a great he's a great guy. Just there's so many people you meet, as you know, in the business, in the industry, that kind of turn you off. But he's just a solid guy and very generous with us with his time. And hopefully we get to continue to work together because he's very busy.
Yep.
And we'll see what happens. But yeah, good
Interesting.
guy.
Okay. So one of the other things I mentioned in the intro, it just kind of goes a little bit off track of what you've done. Where did the Street Brand Preservation Society fit into? Like,
Oh, good.
how did that happen?
Yeah, so let me see here. That was probably when I came back from. So I had moved to after high school. I went to college for a year and I dropped out, And I don't know if you know this, but moved to California with Anthony D'Esposito. Do you remember Anthony?
Absolutely.
Of course you can. So we moved to California. When my goal was to, kind of end up in Los Angeles because at the time that I felt that was probably a better place to be in terms of getting, better drum opportunities. So anyway, come back and a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, my dad has this marching band. Would you be interested in playing? We need a drummer." I said, "Okay, sure, I'll check it out." So I go in there, I go, "Okay, where's the music? Where's the sheet music? Let me see what we got here." "Oh, there's no sheet music. Just play along." Thrust into it. And it was very unique marching band music. It was actually kind of like old Dixieland jazz, kind of like think Louis Armstrong, kind of stuff like that. And yeah, so I started doing that, and that kept me busy. It was a good paying gig, and we marched all over the place, all over Long Island, upstate New York. We did a lot of fire department parades, a lot of competitions, state parades, things like that. It was very serious, and learned a lot. And the thing with that, it was in terms of drumming, it was all rudiments, right? And I had learned that in my earlier years, and it really kept me sharp. It really, and that's still to this day, I think that really helped my development because. When you're marching, if you don't know this, like the horn players, they play a song, they take a break, the drummer keeps playing. So
Right.
we keep playing, you do a cadence in between the songs.
Right.
So
Right.
you go, "Brrr," and then the song's over, you keep playing. So sometimes you're playing for 40, 50, 60 minutes straight without a break, and the horn players just kind of take a little break. Do, 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 do. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So
And it
that
was, it was,
group
it was good
is,
experience.
are they more akin to like a New Orleans,
Yes.
street band type of thing?
Yep. Yeah, we even had like costumes. So we were different, than most bands. We always got like a great reaction. And sometimes we do these small parades and then sometimes we were doing parades with thousands and thousands of people. It was pretty crazy. Rain, sleet or snow, we always marched, So but great experience.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, I mentioned some opening acts. You were open for some of these people. How did that like Styx, Billy Squire, Huey Lewis? Had those come along? Does that all?
So that was, a relationship that my singer formed with a good colleague of ours from well, at the time, she was working at Clear Channel Entertainment, and now she's the director at the Patchogue Theater.
Okay.
And again, we had produced at that time, like, I think either one or two independent CDs. And they were very, at that time, it was hard to get something out that stood out. And we made sure that we made it look as professional and sound as professional. We went into a recording studio, professional recording studio, and made sure everything was polished. We didn't have a large budget. We did it very quick, but we made sure it sounded radio ready was really the term. And, we submitted it and we said, "Hey, listen, this is what we want to do." And she called us and we said, "Okay, we can do it." And the first one we did was, yeah, it was Bad Company, Sticks, and Billy Squire. And in fact, I think we did so well. Billy Squire was the opening act. Actually, we went on first, and then Billy Squire came on, and then they asked us to come back on again and play a couple of songs. So I think there was some kind of delay. So the
Right.
joke is that Billy Squire opened for us, actually. But
Of course.
that's between us.
Gotcha.
And yeah, and then we got called back because we did so well. We got called back to do Huey Lewis about a month later. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, it was just really connecting with people and just having our reputation and just being out there. We were really hitting the pavement for a while and really making sure we were out there. We were always playing, make sure we had a presence in New York City, we had a presence on Long Island, and that just opened up the doors. And I think just having a professional sounding, CD representation, and it was radio. It really wasn't complicated music. It really kind of fit that time. So that was important. I think people, okay, this will work. This isn't loud. It wasn't obnoxious. It kind of fit the style at the time, or the mood.
Right. Talk to me about some of your teaching. What do you, your teaching, is that a pretty regular gig for you at this point or?
So I'm kind of on pause right now, but I started my own teaching business, so to speak, and just because I just wanted to do it, or people started asking me, I should say. That's how it started, and then it kind of started spreading. I said, okay, I should probably make this kind of like a formal thing. And I love doing it. I was teaching all over Long Island, and it was just kind of getting a little time consuming with, having a family and things like that. It's nice if you could do it in your zip code. So
Right.
eventually I did find a music store. A guy by the name of Jeff Denny had a big music store, still does, in Shirley out here on Eastern Long Island. and he's a very well-known musician out here. And I just kind of walked into a store, just talking. I gave him my card, and my card said, I teach, basically he's explaining what I do. I teach, I perform, and recording and so forth. And he called me back and he said, "Hey, can you teach a couple of students?" I said, "Sure." Absolutely. So I love doing it. It was great to share. I had a couple of kids. It was so funny. They come in and they're kind of shy, and I said, "Oh, this kid's really doesn't really fit that like drummer mold. He's kind of hitting soft and everything like that." And then he ends up winning, or no, he ends up doing his NISM performance. He got a perfect score. So you never know. And I couldn't believe it. I wanted to frame it. He said, "Look, I got a perfect score on my NISM solo." And he was like not the kid you would think. And then some of the other kids you thought like, "Oh, he's going to be a great drummer." They didn't stick with it. They kind of got distracted with other things, playing sports or whatever, which was fine. you
Yeah,
know
it doesn't always stick with everybody. You never know.
yeah, but it's great to, when you teach somebody something that somebody taught you, and then you see them kind of play that back to you. Wow, it's very, very. I just, I wish I had a little more time to do it. I probably will do it again at some point because I do miss it. It's great
Yeah,
to get the reaction. Yeah.
it's a lot of fun when you get a student who kind of gets it at some point. Or I've had students, in the university level who've come back to me during alumni weekend, and they're like, "Man, I know you didn't really teach that class, but I learned so much working for you
Yeah.
than doing any of my classes, and I wouldn't be working right now." And that's a great feeling when you see somebody succeeding at it too. It really is
Yeah.
very fulfilling in that way as well. So very cool. What do you got coming up? Anything just fun?
So we actually had a busy winter, so that's why I have time to talk with you right now
Okay.
because we're on a little bit of a pause. And one band we're looking for a keyboard player, so we're in search. If you know any keyboard players, let me know on Long Island too.
Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, we're planning our dates for the rest of the year as we speak. Actually, I have rehearsal tomorrow and Thursday, so it'll be a busy week.
Okay. Is that
And
with both of those bands or just
so
one?
yeah, yeah, I have them split in two right now. So trying to balance two bands is tough. But we make it work.
Hey, absolutely. Do what you got to do. So,
Mhm.
Matt, I want to say thank you for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. It was
My
good to
pleasure.
catch up with you and really dig into your experiences are really great, and I think it's going to help and people would enjoy it. So thank you for
Oh, I
joining.
really appreciate it. Hey, I have one quick question for you.
Sure,
Little trivia question.
sure.
So do you remember the one song that you and I performed? Not a theater show. One song we performed together. Do you remember? It wasn't with just me. It was with the band, the guys we were playing with at the time. The
Back in the USSR.
Oh, very good. Excellent. I wasn't sure. I had to think about it for a second. What song
Yeah,
did Rich
I
play?
totally remember doing that back in the
Yeah.
USSR. Yep.
And I have to be honest with you. I remember that going, wow, I don't think I ever really heard Rich. And we rehearsed it. I don't remember really Rich singing that much. And you came out and you were like, flew into Miami, BOAC. And I was like, whoa, he means business. Look at him.
Yeah, it was
Great.
I can't, it was one of the junior senior cabaret or something at Trinity.
Senior Cabaret.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we had
Yeah.
a blast doing that. I remember that. That was with Tom and John Cote and
Yep.
Ron. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. That was the high school band. Yeah. And then we caused a little havoc after that, but we'll save it for another podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole different one. So, well, thanks again, Matt, for joining us.
My
And,
pleasure, Rich. My
and
pleasure. Thank you very much.
anybody out there, if you enjoy what you heard, please hit subscribe. And we'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep the faith.
Places, places, please. This is Places.